Welcome to Unleashed at Work and Home. I'm Colleen Pilar, and this is where pet professionals come for honest conversations about what it really takes to show up for yourself while serving the animals you love. If you've ever felt caught between compassion and exhaustion, you're in the right place. Here we explore what it means to reconnect with your inner wisdom and rediscover the joy that brought you to this work. Make sure to join my email community at colleenpilar.com for gentle, practical insights designed specifically for pet professionals. Now, let's dive in. Welcome back to Unleashed at Work and Home. My guest today is Kim Palermo, and she is the co-owner of Blue Dog Pet Care. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you for having me.
So happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about Blue Dog.
Oh, Blue Dog. So that was like my baby. So Blue Dog started as a dog walking company. I opened it in 2008. So back then, I was kind of like in between jobs and didn't really know what to do. And I always wanted to work with animals and dogs in particular. So I put an ad in the local newspaper and I printed out 100 business cards, and that's how Blue Dog started. So that was, I think, 17 years ago. And so it started with just me walking dogs. By the end of that year, I was so busy that I was turning away clients, and I hired my little sister as my first employee. And then I kept hiring from there. So we were dog walking for quite a few years. And then I had an interest in training dogs, and we started offering some private training, and I really wanted a training facility. So I found one. It was tiny. I opened that up in 2012. And at the same time, my husband was working for, he had what I like to call a real job, right? And he ended up, I was overwhelmed at that point because I had a lot of employees. I was opening up the training facility. So him and I talked, and we were like, okay, we could do this for 3 months, have him quit his job, work for Blue Dog, see how it goes. And the rest is history, in the sense that my husband still works for Blue Dog. We have a different training facility. It's a little bit larger. So we offer group membership classes for pet people. We do private training, and then we still do dog walking as well. And we have a staff of, I think we've got 6 or so dog trainers, and then maybe 15 or so dog walkers, and then some pretty amazing management staff. So that's Blue Dog. Still doing it today.
That's incredible. It's quite the growth story. And it does speak to the need of walking, how much people really need somebody to help with just the exercise and outlet for their dogs.
Yeah, and it's really amazing because I started the business in 2008, and the economy wasn't that good then. But a lot of people had to work, and it's different now, since the pandemic, but a lot of people were driving into work, and we're a little north of Boston. So a lot of our clients drive into Boston for work. And so, the need for dog walking was huge. It still is, but it's definitely different than what it was, before the pandemic. But big need for that.
There is a big need for that. So did you always think this was what you were going to do with your life?
Of course. Yes. So I grew up as an animal girl. And fortunately my family was, my parents were into animals. So we always had 4 or 5 dogs at any given time. I grew up mostly with rough collies. My mom bred a couple litters. But we had a whole bunch of other things. We had ducks and chickens and goats, and I rode horses. So animals were always my thing. I was very fond of insects. So I really wanted to be a veterinarian, like any animal loving girl. But in particular, because my parents owned their own local business, I wanted to have my own practice, and I wanted to marry another veterinarian to run the practice together. Not exactly what happened, but close enough, I would say.
Pretty darn close.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think it's so interesting asking people that question. And because sometimes 10-year-old you is like right on the money, and sometimes 10-year-old you is totally in a different field or genre of what they're imagining for their life. But 10-year-old you imagine something really quite a bit like what you have.
Yeah, and I have a tendency to kind of really go for what I want, so I guess that's my biggest proof of that, so
Which is a really great trait and one that so many pet professionals struggle with. So tell me a little bit
Mm,
about that. A tendency to go for what you want. What helps you do that?
mm, I mean, I actually am not really sure. I'm very much, an ideas person, and I don't get scared of risks all that often. I put myself out there, and I think that that has helped my career a lot. So even, when I started the dog walking company, my job prior to that, when I got out of college, was a sales job. And I was making, a decent amount of money. It was a good job, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I quit that. I worked for my parents for a couple of months for their business. And then I started my dog walking company. So I tend to just put myself out there and then think about it later, which maybe isn't always the right way to approach things, but it has certainly helped me a lot. I mean, a more recent example of that would be Julie Daniels. So she was the original Control Unleashed instructor for Fenzi Dog Sports Academy.
Mhm.
And I was taking classes with her. She lives locally to me. And we would go to her house and hang out outside and train dogs and then sit and chat. And she mentioned that she was going to be teaching Control Unleashed classes for Fenzi Dog Sports Academy. And I said, at the time I had just gotten certified, and I said, well, if you need a teaching assistant, I would be willing to do it. And she said, well, yeah, I do. And it just that alone, I drove home thinking about it like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? But it was the most amazing learning experience. And now it has me, deeply involved in teaching for Fancy Dog Sports Academy. So, yeah, I just say it first and then think after, I guess. But it works really nicely for me so far.
It has worked really nicely for you so far. So how long have you been, you know, from the assistant role to the instructor role at Finzi? How long have you been involved there?
Um, I, I actually don't know when I started teaching being the teaching assistant. I think I did that for probably like 2 or 3 years. And then during that time, I got to know Julie really well. And we made a good pair. And then just for health reasons, she had to take a step back. It started with kind of a unexpected, change in her ability to teach. It was halfway through a term. And so we decided that I was just going to take over teaching that class for her. And it was very overwhelming for me to just be like, okay, I'm now the instructor. I have to convince you that I'm just as good as Julie Daniels. And then we decided from there that, she was going to retire and I was going to just take over the classes. So it just kind of morphed into it that way. I wish it had happened differently. I wish it wasn't due to health reasons.
Yeah.
But Julie has been so supportive, and this is what she wanted, was for me to ultimately take over those classes for her. So,
Mhm. And how lovely that it could happen that way where you had assisted for some time, and then
oh
when there
yeah,
was a need that she was able to give her students the gift of completing the class,
yeah,
which often if an instructor can't complete, if there isn't someone who could step in, then there's the weight of that too. It's like, I
yeah.
wanted them to be able to finish, and they cannot finish because I cannot finish. But she had this hard choice to make, but she was able to help them with someone that she knew and trusted and trained and
hmm
all of that. That's good. So, what do you think is really, really cool about your job?
well, I mean, right now online. for FDSA, I'm teaching a puppy class. This is like my dream come true, is to teach a puppy class worldwide. And I have this adorable student in my class. It's this, like, I don't know, 9 or 10-week-old Australian Shepherd puppy. And it was playing the up-down game, which is a control and leash skill. And I showed the video to my husband and I said, this is my job. Like, this is my job. Like, how amazing is that? So I kind of just love it in general right now. But I think more than anything, I like to work with other pet professionals, other trainers. I love to mentor them. I mentor for the Catch program. I mentor for Leslie McDevitt for the Control Unleash program. I really like helping other trainers, and in particular, the Control Unleash skills. It's such a different way at looking at your relationship with your dog. And I like to be able to offer that to people. Right now through FDSA, I work with a lot of dog trainers and also sports competitors. And a lot of people who do sports with their dogs, they're focusing on the sports skills. And I really like to be able to offer them those other skills that are more relationship based and help prepare the dog for whatever that stressful and, or trial environment might be. And yeah, and then I get to see puppies in person too. So I mean, that's pretty great because we do teach. I don't teach a lot of in-person classes now, but every once in a while I'll teach a Saturday and I get to teach the puppy classes and they're wonderful. And I get to work with my dogs. So I have 5 dogs, and my 2 collies, Jane and Sunday, have really, really nice social skills, and they also enjoy puppies. So through our business, we actually we call them socialization sessions. And so our clients can book this time that's one-on-one their puppy with my dogs. And it gives the puppy an opportunity to have a really, really lovely adult dog experience. So it's extremely beneficial for them. I get to just hang out and answer their puppy questions. And then I watch puppies play and stuff. It's just wonderful.
That does sound pretty wonderful. I mean, really,
Yeah.
that does sound like a form of heaven. Especially if your dogs enjoy it, if your dogs are like, okay, fine, here's a puppy.
Yep. Oh, I feel so lucky to have them to be able to do that. It's just, I didn't do it on purpose. They just ended up that way. So it works out great. Then I get to go to work with my dogs too. So that's nice also.
Do you do much one-on-one training, or are you mostly doing my brain is going virtual online, but are you doing the mentoring and teaching more, or are you doing a fair amount of client work as well?
I do mostly online and then kind of mentoring, running my business, those kinds of things. The one-on-one never really clicked for me. I actually prefer to teach group classes or even webinar or a conference or an in-person workshop. I like to have a lot of people there. So the one-on-one never really clicked for me. I do some virtual private training. So mostly FDSA clients will contact me and we'll work directly. So I'll do some of that. It's really interesting to me because growing up, I was such an introvert. I was very, very shy little girl. And it's amazing to me that I like to be in front of a lot of people, but not just, teach one person. And I find even with the amazing trainers that work for me, some of them enjoy the classes more, some of them enjoy the private training more. And it's nice that I have that variety, for my business.
Yeah. And it definitely is a personal preference thing that some people really like one form, some people really like the other, and some like both.
Yeah.
And if you like neither, then this is the wrong career. But it is an interesting experience because I also, huge introvert, was a little surprised as I developed over years greater comfort with the group stuff. And I think there's some magic in groups. Like, I think there's
Hmm.
definitely in human only groups, there's magic for sure. But I always loved a good group class with dogs too. Like
Oh,
that
yeah.
there is something about here we are together working toward our own goals individually, but also kind of cheering each other on and being with one another and even just seeing that this is possible. Like, oh, th- here's where I am right now, but that's where I could be in a couple of weeks, like that level. I think there's something really cool about groups.
Yeah, I agree. And in our membership program, so it's like a monthly membership, right? And our clients can sign up and on a monthly basis, it renews. And then it's levels. So we have elementary, middle school, high school, and college. And I think it's Friday mornings, we call it our all adults level. So whether your dog's in elementary school or college, they can come to that class. And I've heard such great things about that class because our novice students can see what our college kids are doing. And some of our college students, they've been enrolled in our program for multiple years. Like they are committed. And then for our college students, they like the benefit of getting their dog around, other dogs that their dog doesn't know. Because all the college students, I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
actually hang out with each other now outside
Mm-hmm.
of, I'm going to say class, but it is. So yeah, there's just something about the group element, and we really try to build a culture that does kind of builds that cheering for each other. And, of course, we're positive reinforcement. So we try to use that not just for the dogs, but for our students as well. So yeah, it's a really neat culture what it can create.
Yeah, we used to do levels too back when I was at All About Dogs, and we didn't have college, but we had elementary, junior high, high school, and puppy kindergarten. And I would always encourage the advanced students to attend lower classes because I would say your dog has really amazing skills around dogs who have really amazing skills.
Right.
Hooray!
Yeah,
How good are those amazing skills around dogs who don't have really amazing skills?
exactly.
And that it was sort of easy to incorporate those dogs into a lower level class because they had good skills. But
Yep.
the person, the handler, would be working much harder, you know, in an
Yep.
elementary school class with their advanced dog because everyone around had no attention, no focus, or even space awareness, like some of the owner or
Yeah.
families
Yeah.
trying to get over the word owner. Like it's
Mm,
so ingrained from my past and
I
it slips
know.
out sometimes and I hear it. I'm like, oh no. It is an old word deeply
It
embedded in
is.
there.
Oh yeah.
What is the word you choose rather than that?
I I mean, usually I'll mention like our students, right? Or my students through FDSA, I often say handler
Handler.
because when we're working with sports people.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's one of those things that it's changing and you have to adjust with those changes with the industry. And
Mhm.
for those of us who've been doing it for a long time, it can be a little tricky at times.
It can be tricky, and no harm is intended by using the wrong word, but yet there is baggage associated with words. I mean,
Oh yeah.
words in so many areas, there's a greater sensitivity when we discover additional connotations or past meanings and things like that. Um, and so this kind of growth and evolution, but I heard myself slip it out and I was like, "Well, I try so hard not to say that." So so from this experience of you always kind of envisioned you'd really like to have your own business and you'd love to be married to a partner who was in that business and together you'd have that. What is it that gives you that even your young self knew? Like, if I have that, it will make me feel what or have what?
I think ultimately, that's such a good question. I think I always saw that as, I would have happiness.
Mhm.
I would have I'm a very passionate person. So whether it's animals or really like anything I get into, I was really into art as a kid, and um, for a while I was into photography, and even that I get very passionate, and I knew that passion would kind of drive me. And, um, I think ultimately that would lead to me being happy. And it's interesting because as you go through life and you realize that there are quite a lot of challenges, right? And we're not always happy, our happiest selves, due to whatever may happen. I mean, any of us who are working with dogs, we ultimately lose our dogs, right? That alone makes life very challenging. And I think having that dream come true and living the life that I really wanted gives me that foundation of happiness that I can fall back on. Um, you know, if I were working a job or a career where I didn't have that passion, I think it would make those more challenging times even more challenging. I certainly didn't know that as a 10-year-old girl.
No.
I think I was just dreaming big, and I am a big dreamer. But I think that's what it ultimately provides me with.
Do you have a big dream you're willing to share with us now? Something you're reaching toward?
Well, gosh, I think someday I would love to write a book. So I guess I'll put that out there into the universe.
Okay.
Um,
We will all start waiting for it. Someday she'd love to write a book. Do you have any idea of what that book would be about, or just there's a book in you?
Yeah, there's a book in me. I think every few years I go through like a different idea and what that's going to ultimately be. I mean, there's so many great dog books out there now, right?
Mhm.
So it's got to be something different. So we'll see. It's brewing up there. It'll arrive someday.
When it's ready. When it's ready. But
Hmm.
you've put it
Yep,
out there now, so
I did.
we
Yes.
can reach for it with you. We can reach for it with So I always ask my guests to share some words that have meaning for them, and you shared a quote that is easy choice, hard life. Hard choices, easy life. And then the person's name, I'm not entirely sure I can say properly, so I'm going to just toss that to you. Do you know how to say this person's name? Who said that?
I do know. So I actually, the quote was given to me by, I guess I would call her my business coach.
Uh-huh.
So I would more that it's her name that comes to
It's
my
her name.
mind
Okay.
when it
Fair.
comes to the quote. So her name is Penelope. But yeah, I've always looked for support my entire life, or I guess my entire life, adulthood, as far as just support with life in general, whether it was through therapy, or with the business through a business coach. And this woman, Penelope, she's been helping me for quite a few years now. And she's really kind of I would say she's a little bit of everything.
Mhm.
She's helped me with big things and then the business. And so she's the one who mentioned this quote to me because, especially as a manager, and I don't really directly manage my team now. We have a team that does that. But I've always been a people pleaser. I don't really care for conflict. And so I kind of let a lot of things go, and I didn't really step up and give my team the guidance that they needed to then not do things that I was hoping they wouldn't do. And, she helped me a lot with that, and I think that's where she originally talked to me about it, because it was where I had to start kind of really stepping up and building the team that was gonna really support my business and my dreams and, all our goals. And so that's kinda where it started, but since working with her, we have made some, harder choices that ultimately led to things being easier. One example would be we had shared a space for a while with a dog daycare, and I thought it was going to work out really nicely, and it turned out we had different philosophies as the
Mhm.
owners. And we ended up having to pay to get out of our lease early. And we lost a significant amount of money with that decision. But separating ourselves from, the someone who had different philosophies from us ultimately was the right decision for our business and for for our mental health and emotional health. So yeah, she's just kind of really like that has helped me a lot with things like that. It's whenever I'm considering something, I go through that and I say, okay, what's the easy choice and what's the hard choice? And even something as silly as I've been posting more on social media and kind of just like me talking to the camera. And that's really hard for me, but it's getting me out there. It's getting people finding me. So it's a hard choice. It'd be easier to just, type something or post a picture, whatever it might be. This is a harder choice, but I think ultimately it's creating, more conversation. I'm meeting more people online. And then they're, finding out about my classes. So it's yeah, it's something I always kind of run through my head when it comes to any decision, big or small.
Yeah, I think it's a really valuable one because it is tricky that how often we think, I can't separate from this lease early because I'll lose money or it'll hurt feelings or it'll be a problem or my
Yeah,
customers will be unhappy and all of those in the moment don't feel like easy choices. I mean, so to be clear, the easy choice is sometimes lack of action, but it doesn't feel
exactly.
great.
Yes.
So it doesn't but it's that whole element of, like, what am I reaching for? What is the long-term goal? What do I really want to have happen? And that often requires a lot of clarity about what it is that we want so that we can make those choices and know that they're right for us. And that isn't the same as what's right for everyone else. So that's where the hard comes in of that other people
Ex
might go, "What the heck?" Like, for example, when you had this nice job in sales that paid well, and you said, "I think I'm not gonna do this." There
Yeah.
was probably a few people who had some opinions about that,
Yeah,
about whether you were
absolutely.
making a mistake.
Yeah, it's, when I got out of college, it's almost like our culture expects us to then just go and get a real job, and that's what I did. So when I did decide that I was gonna quit and then not have a game plan and, not do anything with
Easy
my
talk.
degree, like, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it ultimately led me to, what I'm doing now, and so, yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Yep,
Yeah, but I
that's
like what you said about how sometimes the hard choice or the easy choice is no action.
mhm.
I keep the lease because I don't want to create conflict. It did create conflict. I don't want to, lose the money. We did lose money. It was easier to just not do anything. And sometimes the easy choice is to just say yes to something. Saying no and setting a boundary can be so hard. And it's been practice. Like, I've had to really practice at it, but, it definitely the more you do it and you see the results, the easier it becomes.
Yeah. And for me, when you say that, the more you do it and you see the results, the easier it becomes. The 2 things that come to mind are the positive results of what occurs after having made that choice, but also the lack of the world exploding that I had feared. Because I think so often it's easy to come up with catastrophic things that might happen if we do these difficult things. And we don't always get the guaranteed, like, "Yay, everything will be perfect on the other side," because it will take time to build that, so, like, when you decided to leave the lease, you didn't automatically have a better experience.
Right.
But also, the world did not end. It didn't you didn't go poof into a big cloud of smoke and just be reduced to ash. And I think sometimes we're so afraid of that, like, that it
Mhm.
might be really, really bad, but we can't articulate that. Like, what is it that you're actually afraid of? Um, and so that experience of, like, take an action, see what happens, decide how you feel about it, make a choice. take another action,
Mhm.
see what happens, decide how you feel about it, make another choice. That goes on big and small levels. Um, but some of those are really hard. So it's a bit of having the practice of allowing yourself to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes these decisions, it's not like you take the action and then, okay, immediately, like, okay, the action's bad, but then immediately things are good. Like, it can take
Yeah.
a while to progress to that easy life, right? From the hard life.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's quick, but sometimes it's not. And yeah, it's tricky, but gosh, it's worth it. So
Yeah. Yeah. That is, I think, the big challenge is that when we can't get a guarantee, so many of us would like certainty that we're afraid to take the action. And I totally include myself in that.
yep.
100%. Like I just love some certainty. And so still learning to be more comfortable with lack of certainty and to take more actions and to do more things. So when I meet people like you who are like, "Well, I always sort of dreamed big and took action and jumped first," there's a piece of me that's like, "Fascinating. Really? How?"
Well, the crazy thing too is like, so I teach control and leash, right? And that's all about providing predictability for our dogs. And even at the same time, like CU really like clicks for my brain. And like, I like that predictability. Like, I joke all the time about how I wish I had control and leash patterns for a human for like when I go to a networking event or even when I walk into a restaurant and I need to choose what table I'm sitting at. Like, I want predictability there. But then I go and like quit my job and start a dog walking company, like without
Mhm.
any predictability whatsoever. So I guess I have the big dreams some places, but I do need that predictability in other parts of my life. So
Yeah. I think we all need it more than we actually realize.
Mm.
When I was still training dogs and people would complain about their dog having difficulties in a variety of environments, I would kind of talk to them about, have you ever taken a class where you just kind of go and sit in the same seat every time or approximately the same seat, and then you come in one day and they've rearranged the room? And it's fascinating to watch humans with that. Like they will walk
Mhm.
into the room and they will stop, physically stop.
Yeah,
Then they'll make a decision, but there was no assigned seating in the first place. It's just like this room that used to have 8 tables set apart now has 2 long rows of 4. What do I do? How do I And, like, we don't notice that in ourselves. We just kind of move on with,
right.
"Oh, okay, that was so weird.
Yeah.
They rearranged the room. I wonder why." We have that discomfort, and then "Oh, okay, I can do it." Uh, but there's this expectation on dogs that they're supposed to just kind of go like, "Oh, yeah, think this one's different. Okay,
Yeah,
this one's
something's
different.
new,
Okay."
I'll just go on with it, yeah.
Yeah. So, I think the predictability of the patterns is nice, and I'm very new to the patterns. So,
Mhm,
I had read the book, like, right at the end of my training, so I didn't actually absorb any of it. I was like, "Oh, interesting. That'll be
mhm,
interesting," and then I did nothing with it. Then more recently, I adopted a dog who needed a bit more. Um, and it's interesting to see how the patterns help both of us, but also
yes,
how it requires some work to actually make it a pattern, you know?
yes. Yep,
So it's a tricky piece when we're all kind of reaching for the certainty of like, what do I need and how much of it do I need and how do I create that on the big level and the small level?
yeah, yeah, absolutely, but I do think Control Unleashed, it does really help the human a lot also with the predictability. It
Mhm.
gives them, something to focus on, something that's consistent and clear. And that helps a lot. It's so yeah, I love that. That and I love Take a Breath because it's co-regulating. You're just sitting there breathing deep with your dog. I mean, they're like what could be better than that? I just love it.
Which is so funny because we all need to take a breath, and it just
We
doesn't
do,
feel like helpful advice ever, like
right?
people really resist that breathing can be our way into our autonomic nervous system. Like, we're just like, "I need to do all these things," and also you need to breathe. "No! No.
It's so hard sometimes.
Don't-
But if you teach it to your dog, I mean, there's your excuse to breathe deep. So
Exactly. When we do it on behalf of animals, we'll do almost
right.
anything. On behalf of
Exactly.
ourselves, it's a little more tricky. If I could give you a magic wand and you were going to grant a blessing upon pet professionals everywhere, what would you give us?
Oh, this is so hard. I mean, I think if I could grant something on all pet professionals, it would probably be empathy, you know, towards their dogs. I think the industry there's a lot of empathy in the industry, and a lot of us are doing this because of our empathy. But I think there's also maybe there's definitely a lack of it some places, and I think also maybe a misunderstanding of what dogs truly need. Um, in the sense of their feelings, their needs, their desires, even understanding pain. I had chronic migraines and neck pain for 8 years, and when I think of, like, wearing a collar and a leash if I were a dog, that really, really puts things into perspective for me. Not that I'm saying all dogs have pain, but I think that empathy, is a really important piece. But if there were really something I could give everyone, I think it would just be more time, because we all need more time, right? I just wish I could grant that for everyone. Time to, learn more and spend more time with our dogs. My dogs have been my greatest teachers, hands down. And I've taken so many forms of education. I will always learn the most from my dogs, and having time to learn from our dogs, work with our dogs, teach our dogs different skills. It just hike with our dogs, I think, but we don't have the time for it, right? And then just, relaxing, having time for ourselves, being able to give ourselves self-care, go for a run if that's what you want, or eat ice cream if that's what you want. Like, I want people to have time for that. And even, time for therapy and that kind of support, time with friends. I think we all lack time. And I guess, if I really want to wish something maybe unrealistic upon everyone, that would be it.
Doesn't have to be realistic. I gave you a magic wand.
Okay. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that magic wand. I hope it starts working.
Yes, I hope it starts too. And I think that it does start the more we kind of put things out there. Just like the wish for the book is out there now.
Yes.
The wish for this empathy and the time and the space. And I'm going to just underscore one little piece that came up for me while you were saying that was the reaching for support too. Like you'd said before about your business coach, and that I do think we are programmed to not reach for support sometimes for fear that it might mean, something's wrong with us. And yet none of us have all the answers to anything. So the more we can normalize for ourselves and others that here's what I'm getting help with here, and here's where I'm helping someone else there, it can create this exchange where you can be both a mentor and a student at all times and in all various facets of your life. And so,
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I've had some really, really amazing mentors in my life in the training industry. They're trainers, and I would not be where I am today without, each and every one of them. And I got like this great group of friends that are in the industry, whether it's just they really enjoy sports with their dog, or they're, trainers, or, do something else in this industry. And, we have a little Slack conversation where we'll like just, brainstorm ideas. And that's where I feel safe to go. Um, I think when you look for it, there is a lot of support out there. And it's another place where kind of putting yourself out there is really going to help. And
yeah.
I've found that not everyone, but there are people out there who really, really want to help. And I mean, I know for me, as someone who likes to mentor others, I love when people ask me questions, like send them to me, send me videos, like I love it. But I've also found that when I reach out to my mentors or even just my friends and say, okay, this is my problem, or can you review this webinar for me, or whatever it might be, they really enjoy doing it. They want to help. So I think putting yourself out there, you'll find that opportunities for mentorship or just support is everywhere.
Thank you. That's really valuable. I think that's so important. If people want to learn more about you and the work you do, how could they do that?
Probably the easiest way to find me is just on social media. So I can be found on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram as Kim and Dogs. But also I'm teaching every term at Fenzi Dog Sports Academy. So I can be found there. And then my local business is called Blue Dog. So my website is bluedogpetcare.com. So I would say those are the ways to find me.
Okay, I'll link all of that up in the show notes.
Cool.
Thanks so much for talking with me today, Kim. It was such a pleasure.
Well, thanks for having me.
That's our conversation for today. If something we talked about resonated, I invite you to sit with it. Notice what feels true and what you want to explore further. You don't have to have it all figured out to start moving toward what matters. Whatever showed up for you today, clarity, questions, even resistance, trust that it's pointing you towards something important. For more support, join my weekly notes at colleenpilar.com. And until next time, remember, you are enough. Always, just as you are.